This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So in previous session, we started discussing a Power Query option, right? So Power Query, we all know why we use a Power Query in Power BI reporting, right? So while importing data into Power BI Desktop for visualization of from database or from Excel file from anything. So while importing data from database to Power BI Desktop for visualization, in case if you want to remove unwanted columns, in case if you want to clean up the data, so we push it through the Power Query. We push it through the Power Query. In Power Query we have a transformation options, cleaning steps. So we will clean the data in Power Query, then we will push the data into a Power BI Desktop for visualization. So now we are over here, like we are discussing options and features in a Power Query, right? So now in today's session, so we will go through a few more features available in Power Query, like native query, query folding, and apply steps and data source settings, and other options in a Power Query. Okay. So I'll take a case. I'll take a case where, and with that case, we will discuss the features. Okay. So I'll let me show you.
Anna,
One, yes.
before going to, I have one doubt. Yes.
Okay.
So Power Query Anna, Power Query, Power Pivot, and Power View.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Power
So
pivot. Mm.
Power Pivot అన్నా కూడా I mean transform data అనేది.
Power pivot not transform data. Yes.
Okay. And
There,
Power Query అంటే I mean modeling.
Power Query, what we are discussing is a Power Query editor. Yes. Data modeling is different. This is a data modeling. Whatever we do in the modeling section, right? We call it as data
Power
modeling.
View అంటే Power View అంటే
Power View is a multiple names, and so I'll come back to this. I'm not sure on Power. There are various names people are calling in Power View. Just let me Google it. Power View. So there are various names. Power View means this one.
desktop.
Visualization. Design section. Design
Okay.
section is a Power. Okay, there are various names. People use various names for it. Like I use a report, design section, design pattern, layout, and also they use a Power View. It's a traditional term for them. Power View means this one, data modeling, and Power Query means the transform data. Power Pivot means transform data only. Transform data, Power Query editor. Any other questions?
Okay.
Okay, fine. So let's go. We will take a case. We will take a source file, and with the source file, we will discuss all these concepts. Okay. So let me show you a source file. Let me show you a source file. There is one report called liquidity report. Okay. So we have received this report from a client, and he requested us to load the data. So account, security, market information. This information we will have to load into a Power BI desktop. So this is the information he wants us to load into Power BI desktop. Okay, total stock. So this information we have to remove it while loading, and we have to load only this particular portion of the data, only this portion of the data. Okay, so we have received this file from a client, and now what we have to do, we have to load this data, this portion of the data into a Power BI desktop for a visualization. While loading, we have to ignore a first row, third row, fourth row, fifth row, and sixth row. So we have to ignore these rows. We have to remove them. We have to we discussed, right? So cleaning up junk data, some unwanted information. The file consists. This is unwanted information for Power BI desktop. We don't require this information while loading it into Power BI desktop. So we want only this information. Okay. Let's see. We will push it through the Power Query and we'll remove these extra rows and we'll take only this information into a Power BI desktop. Okay. So let's close this file and go to Power BI desktop. Click on Get Data and click on Excel work and select Liquidity Report. Click on Open, and in which sheet we have data, in second sheet, right? Select second sheet, but the second sheet has header names, empty rows. So we don't want this entire information. There is some unwanted information in the file. So we don't want to have a first five rows, right? One, two, three, four, five. We don't want first five rows, right? And we don't want this total rows as well. So there are some total rows. There are three total rows. We don't want those rows as well. So we have to clean this data. So cleaning is required now. So when cleaning is required, then we will push this data through a Power Query. We'll click on a transform data and we'll go to transform data. And over here we have various transformations available to clean the data. Now here we have a header rows, right? So how to filter out this, how to remove these rows, no? So here we have a remove rows option. With the help of this option, you can remove these. Okay, in case if file consists of a duplicate, if the file consists of a duplicate, then duplicates we can remove by using this option, remove duplicates. We have seen it in a previous session, right? Now, so over here in this particular case, here we have another option called remove top rows. Remove top rows means if you click on remove top rows, right? uh, you just enter a number. Just if you enter two over here, it will remove top two rows blindly. So first row and second row will be removed. Okay, just click on OK. So first two rows will be removed, but we don't know, right? Like in today's file we have these two five rows. In tomorrow's file we might receive a five blank rows, right? So we cannot go with this option. In case if you client confirms that the source file will always have five blank rows, then you can go with this option, remove top rows option. You can mention five over here, which will remove top five rows blindly. Okay, this is one way of removing unwanted rows, and you have to be very sure this file always consists of five blank rows on the top. Okay, if the file will not, in case of a file is not having a five top rows, no, five blank rows at the top, then it will there is a chance of removing data rows. So you have to be very sure while using this option. Okay, now whatever next next option, remove bottom rows. In case if you want to remove a bottom rows, so like here we have a bottom three rows, no? In case if you want to remove any rows from the bottom, then we can go with the second option called remove bottom rows, and here you can mention how many rows you want to remove from the bottom. Okay, so how many rows you want to remove. So you can just mention a three. If you mention three, it will remove three rows from the bottom. See, and you have to be very sure there would be always three blank rows in the bottom, like at the bottom. Okay, so now we have to remove another one, right? Like again you click on remove rows, and this time you remove only one bottom row. Okay, so only one row. Click OK. Fine. So, but you have to be very sure. And so this is a file which we receive on daily basis, but you have to be very sure while applying these transformations. Okay, so each and every transformation which you apply on this particular data, so each and every step will be captured under apply steps, so right side box, right? So each and every step that you apply, so every step will be captured over here. So you can see all those steps captured. So if you want to do undo, no, just remove these steps. So you can see a bottom rows now. Okay. So there is another way of removing unwanted rows. So you can make use of this option. You can make use of this option, remove top rows, bottom rows, and this option is used to remove alternate rows. Alternate rows means like how we applied alternate colors, right? Like see, second row it will remove, fourth row it will remove, sixth row it will remove, seventh row it will, alternate rows it will remove. So if you want to remove alternate rows, we use this option. So this is a, we don't use this option frequently. Okay, we don't use this call frequently. So you can mention a first row, number of rows to remove, how many rows to keep. Okay, so it will just go for alternate rows. Okay, we don't use this option, so we don't remove alternate rows. So we need to have a consistent condition for identifying junk information, identifying unwanted information. Okay, so this is a one way of removing unwanted rows from the file. There is another way of removing. So here you can just apply a filter on this. You can just select from the filter. If in case if you are refreshing another file tomorrow, if you are refreshing another file tomorrow, If first column has a null values, don't take from it, just exclude it. Okay, click OK. All null values will be removed now. And next condition, column 2, if you find any null values in column 2, remove them. Okay, just apply, exclude them. This is another way of removing unwanted rows. This is another way of removing unwanted rows. See, so now you can see it's clean, right? So this is another way of removing. But whatever action that you perform on a Power Query, everything will be captured over here. Whether you applied a filter to remove rows, whether you applied this particular transformation, everything can be seen in applied steps. Okay. Now, any questions so far in removing unwanted rows from a source file? So in case if you find unwanted rows in a source file, so there are two ways of removing them. So you can go with this option, remove rows option, or you can go with you can apply a filter on this. Like if you have a consistent condition, based on a consistent condition, we can go for remove rows or we can apply a filter. Okay. Now if you look at this data, so column names, right? So it is showing Blackstone, Senfina, and column 2, column 3, column 4. We need to have a columns, right? So here, if you just focus, no, the first row has a column name. The first row has a column name. So if you here we have an option to promote first row has a column header. Here we have a use first row as a headers. If you click on this option, first row will be promoted as a header. Select this option, use first row as a header. If you click on this, first row will be promoted as a header name. So see, so accounts, a long security name and security, market value, days average, and these are unwanted columns that we read from the client file, right? The column 7 is not required, it's a blank column, and column 9 is a blank column, and column 11 is a blank. We don't want these columns, right? So we have an option to remove unwanted columns. Here we have an option called remove columns. So you can click on this and you select a column, you select which column you want to remove, you select that column, and if you right click, you can see the same option. The same option is available in multiple places. So you can right click on this column and you can click on remove option, it will remove that column. Or there is a second way of removing column. Select this column and here we have a remove column option. So remove column. Okay, it will remove that column. So we don't want this column as well, right? So first thing we have to remove unwanted columns from the source file. So what are the columns required in a visualization? So you just import only those columns, remove these columns. Okay. So we removed unwanted rows, and we removed unwanted columns as well. Now we clean this data. So it's good to take it to the Power BI desktop, right? So this is how we perform and this is how we apply transformations in a Power Query. Any questions? So based on source data, we will have to apply a transform. We will have to go choose the right transformation to clean the data, right? So now you can import this information into Power BI Desktop. Okay, let's go through these options. Here we have remove columns, right? We have seen a remove column option. If you select a column, if you click on this remove columns, right? Sorry, it will remove only security column. If it will remove only security column, and if you want to keep only these two columns, and you want to remove all other columns except these two columns, if you want to remove all other columns, then remove columns. Here you can go for a second option, remove other column except these two, account and long security name. You remove other columns, click on other columns, it will keep only these two columns which you have selected, and it will remove other columns. Okay, so all these options you can try it out, and all these options you can try it out. So here remove columns we are fine, right? Here under remove rows property, here we are defining which row you want to remove it. In case if you just go with this option remove top rows, no, if you mention 5 over here, which means it will remove top 5 rows, but the other property is a keep rows. Here if you just select this keep top rows, no, if you mention 5 over here, what happens? It will keep only top 5 rows, it will remove other rows. If you just select click OK, it will keep only top 5 rows, it will remove other rows. So vice versa. So in case if you want to remove only top 5 rows, use this option. To remove rows, if you want to define a condition to remove unwanted rows, use this particular property. And in case if you want to define to keep rows, okay, I want only these particular rows, I want to have only first 2 rows, I don't want other rows, then you can go with this option. So keep only 2 rows, you delete other rows. Keep only top 2 rows, you delete all other rows. Okay, so here we have to define a condition for saving rows, here we have to define a condition for removing rows. Okay, that is only the difference between remove rows and keep rows property. Next option, choose columns. Here we have an option called choose columns. Like in case if you are importing a file into Power BI Desktop, if the file consists around 150 columns, 200 columns, right? Let's say this particular file consists of 100 columns. Now I would like to find a particular column, and I would like to find a specific column called quantity column, find out choose column. If the file consists of 150 columns, you'll have to scroll left or right, right? You have to find it. Sorry. You have to find out the specific column by scrolling left or right, right? So when you have a 150 columns, it takes little time, like 30 seconds, 1 minute to find out a specific column. So instead of doing that, so Microsoft has provided an option called choose columns option. You can click on this and choose column. Like you can just go to column or choose column, go to column. So here you can just, here you can see a list of columns available in our data set. If the data set consists 150 or 200 columns, you can just type a column which you want to view. I want to view quantity column. So now select a quantity column and click OK. It will take you to that column. See? So this option helps when you have a more number of columns in a data set and you are trying to find out a specific column data. Okay, it's just for our purpose, like it's for our helping purpose. Okay, we don't, so we use it for finding a specific column quickly. Okay, fine. So any questions still here? Choose columns, remove columns, keep rows, and remove rows. We discussed 4 different properties. Okay, fine. And we discussed this as well, right? Use first row as a header. In case if your data has headers inside it as a data, and if you want to promote the first row as a header, then you can use this option. Use first row as a header option. Okay. Next option. Next, we'll go to a native query. Next option is native query. Okay. So next topic is native query. Let's take a paint instead of it. It's a very important topic. Native query and query folding. You will receive interview question on these 2 topics frequently. Okay. So here we are developing a Power BI desktop report, Power BI desktop report, and consider this is a database. Consider this as a database, and we have a table in a database, and we are creating a connection by clicking on get data, and we are importing this table. And while importing, we found this table consists of a duplicate. This table consists of a duplicate, some unwanted columns, or right. Then we went through the Power Query. In Power Query, we are applying a transformations. Transformations in the sense removing a duplicate is one transformation, and filtering out rows is another transformation. So each and every option that you click in a Power Query will be is a transformation. Okay. Now I am applying a transformations on this table, like consider filtering rows. Okay, I don't want to have a particular row. I don't want to import a particular row, so I am applying a filtering option on this. Now in a right side window you can see applied steps, right? Under applied steps, transformation whatever transformation we apply on this particular data, each and every step is captured here, captured under applied steps, right? Each and every step will be captured in applied steps. Whatever you perform on this, each and every step will be captured under applied steps. Now I am importing data from SQL server table, SQL server. And over here, as soon as I apply a filter over here, as soon as I apply, let's say MSF portfolio on I don't want to import MSF portfolio. Okay, now I applied a filter on MSF portfolio to remove MSF portfolio. The step will be captured as a filtered rows. The step will be captured as a filtered rows. If you observe, filtered rows గా capture అవుతుంది. Capture అయిన తర్వాత ఓన్లీ ఎంఎస్ఎఫ్ మాత్రం వెళ్ళిపోతుంది. జస్ట్ ఓన్లీ యూ కెన్ సీ ఆ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్. లైక్ ఐ షో యూ. లెట్ మీ గో బ్యాక్ టు. So if you don't want to have Eastman code, like if you don't want to have this particular row, no, just click on a filter and uncheck this, which one you don't want to see. Uncheck this and click OK. When you click OK, so that is a filter, right? That option got filtered, no? So in the background, we are talking about the background process now. So when you apply a filter, so when you apply a filter on anything, when you apply a filter, when you remove any option, any strategy over here, once you click OK, some process happens in the background. We are going to talk about that process now. Okay, what happens internally, how this particular row will be removed, right? So in the background, what happens when you uncheck one option in a Power Query, in the background, in applied step, see a Power BI engine, the Power Query will generate one SQL query. In a applied step, it will generate one SQL query. Okay, it will generate one SQL query. SQL query generate చేస్తుంది. Okay, that SQL query will travel back to database, will travel back to the database, will travel back to the database. That SQL query will get executed in a database, and it will it will exclude MSF lines, and it will bring the data into Power Query. This is a background process. I'm just repeating. Whenever you uncheck anything, whenever you apply a filter on a data, which means uncheck any value, what happens in the background? So it will capture one. That step will be captured under applied steps. The Power Query will generate one SQL query as per the step you applied, as per the filter conditions you applied. It will generate one SQL query. Then the SQL query will travel back to database, and here it will get executed. And after executing that query, it will remove MSF lines. It will bring the latest data into again Power Query, and you can see that filter is applied. So మీరు ఆ ఒక ఆప్షన్ అన్చెక్ చేయగానే ఇంత ప్రాసెస్ జరుగుతుంది బ్యాక్గ్రౌండ్లో ఒక అప్లై స్టెప్ జనరేట్ అవుతుంది. బ్యాక్గ్రౌండ్లో ఒక సీక్వెల్ క్వరీ జనరేట్ అయ్యి అది మళ్ళీ సీక్వెల్ సర్వర్కి వచ్చేసి అక్కడ ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ అయ్యి ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ ఎలా అవుతుంది? సెలెక్ట్ స్టార్ ఫ్రమ్ పోర్ట్ఫోలియో డీటెయిల్స్ వేర్ పోర్ట్ఫోలియో నాట్ ఈక్వల్ టు ఎంఎస్ఎఫ్. ఎందుకని మనం అన్చెక్ చేసాం కదా ఎంఎస్ఎఫ్ వద్దని. సో వేర్ కండిషన్ ఆటోమేటిక్గా ఫామ్ చేస్తుంది పవర్ క్వరీ. వేర్ పోర్ట్ఫోలియో నాట్ ఈక్వల్ టు ఎంఎస్ఎఫ్ అని ఫామ్ చేస్తుంది. ఆ ఎంఎస్ఎఫ్ మాత్రమే ఎక్స్క్లూడ్ చేసి రిమైనింగ్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ మొత్తాన్ని పవర్ క్వరీలో తీసుకొచ్చి షో చేస్తుంది. సో విత్ ఇన్ మిల్లీ సెకండ్స్ లో జరుగుతుంది ఈ స్టెప్ అంతా. ఓకే, నౌ whatever query it is generating under applied step, we call that query as a native query. So we call that query as a native query. So whatever query it is generating, in import option it will not generate any query. Okay, in import option it will not. I'll come back to your questions. Okay, so whatever query it is generating under applied step, whatever query it is generating under applied step, okay, we call that query as a native query. First point, native query. Note it down. Okay, this is a very, very important question in interview. Okay, what is native query? So whatever query it is, Power Query is generating under this applied step, whatever query it is generating, and we call that query as a native query. Okay, fine. In case if you are connecting to Oracle database, then it will generate a SQL query in Oracle language. If you are connecting to MS SQL server, Power Query will generate a query in MS SQL. If you are connecting to MS SQL server, which means MySQL server, then Power Query will generate a query in MySQL syntax. But the query we have a generic name to the query is a native query. We call that as a native query. Any questions on native query? Next. So the native query, as soon as we apply a filter over here, that native query will travel back to the database, and here it will get executed, and after execution it will bring the latest information into a Power Query. This process we call it as a query folding. The process of executing a native query in a database and bringing data back to the Power Query, we call that process as a query folding. So query folding. So these are the two important interview questions then. So one is a native query and second one is the query folding. Any questions? So next point, in case if you are importing data from Excel files or CSV text file, what about import method? If you are importing data from files, there is no concept of native query, there is no concept of a query folding. Remember that. So just note it down. In case if you are importing data from any files, then there is no concept of a native query. It will not generate any native query and it will not go for query folding. So there is no concept of query folding and native query in case of a file. In case of you are extracting data from transactional databases, this is a live concept for transactional databases. In case if you are importing data from transactional databases like MySQL, MS SQL, PostgreSQL, and we have various flavors, Oracle. So there are different databases we have, right? If you are importing data from those databases, and it will generate a native query and it implements the query folding process. So any questions on these two, native query and query folding? If I missed your question, just query folding. So query folding, what is mean by query folding? So I'll take out an example. I'll take an example. I'll explain it. Okay, I'll take an example. Let's close and apply. I'll take another example. Don't worry. Okay. So let's import data from SQL Server. As we discussed, import data from SQL Server. Click on Get Data. Go to SQL Server. So I cannot travel this far. Is there any shortcut? And yes, we have a shortcut. Here we have a shortcut. We click on the SQL Server. Okay. Now this is a familiar screen, right? So here we have to enter SQL Server name. This is a familiar screen. Take a SQL Server name and say the SQL Server name over here, and from which DB you want to import the data. Power BI. I don't write it, and I always do a copy paste. Copy paste. Now connectivity mode is import. I'm going to import as employee table. Employee table, some other table, whichever table you want to import. Click on. We'll select some table. Which table you want to select? Which table you want to select? Some sort of trade board. Trade board. Trade board. Okay. And go to transform data. I'm bringing a trade water table into Power BI Desktop. Now I am flowing through, like I'm traveling through Power Query. Now I got into Power Query. So now I can see a 4 column strategy, maturity rate, currency, and market value, right? Now I don't want to have this particular Allen Brooks one. Allen Brooks one, I don't require it. So client doesn't want to see this particular 4 lines. I'll go and apply filter on it. Go and apply filter, uncheck this. As soon as I uncheck this and click OK, you can see one step created and under applied steps. It is a filtered rows, right? It is a filtered rows. Now, as I mentioned, this step will create a SQL query in the background, right? If you want to see that query, right click on this step, and here you can see a view native query option. Click on view native query option, and this query shows this is a SQL query. As we are importing data from MS SQL server, this is a SQL query. This generates a SQL query, and this query we call it as a native query. In case if you are connecting to the MS SQL, it will write in MS SQL syntax. In case if you are connecting to Oracle, it will write in Oracle syntax. In case if you are connecting to MySQL, it will write in a MySQL. The Power Query knows multiple languages, okay, like us. Control C, and so as soon as it is generating, as soon as it is generating a native query, then what happens? This query will travel back to database. This query will travel back to the database. Then what we have unselected this one, right? Allen Brooks one, we have unselected that got added into a where condition. ఈ query ఇక్కడ execute అవుతుంది. It will get executed in database. Then whatever records it got, ఈ records మళ్ళీ పవర్ క్వరీలోకి ట్రాన్స్ఫార్మ్ అవుతాయి. ఓకేనా? We call this process as refolding is nothing but here when you click OK. So when if I apply one more filter, like I don't want to Allen Brooks and check చేద్దాం. And if you click OK, what happens? It will create a query under filtered rows SQL query. The SQL query will travel to database. Background లో ట్రావెల్ అయి ఉంటుంది, మీరు మిల్లీ సెకండ్స్ లో ట్రావెల్ అయి ఉంటుంది, మళ్ళీ డేటాబేస్ ట్రావెల్ అయ్యి. సో లెట్స్ టేక్ దట్, రైట్ క్లిక్, వ్యూ నేటివ్ query and take the native query and go to SQL server and SQL server ఇక్కడ పేస్ట్ చేస్తాం. సో హియర్ 2 times అన్చెక్ చేసాం కదా ఇప్పుడు. సో అన్చెక్ చేసాం కదా, అలెన్ బ్రోక్స్ వద్దు, అలెన్ బ్రోక్స్ 1 కూడా వద్దని. సో నెక్స్ట్ ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ అవుతుంది. ఇక్కడ ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ అయ్యి వచ్చిన 9 rows, ఈ 9 rows మళ్ళీ పవర్ క్వరీలోకి ట్రావెల్ అవుతాయి. ఈ 9 rows will travel back to the power query. Here you can see a 9 rows. Here you can see a 9 rows. We call this process as a query folding. Now practical is done. I'll explain the definition again. So as soon as you apply a filter on this data, then there will be one step captured under applied steps. Okay, then it will generate one query for under the step, which is nothing but a native query. That query will travel back to database before showing the data. So before showing the data on this grid, it will travel back to the database. Then a query could execute అవుతుంది. Then it will bring the latest data into Power Query. Then it will show the data over here. We call this process as a query folding. Any questions now? Still any confusion on query folding process? What about others? What about others? It's very important. It's a very important interview question. Query
దీంట్లో
folding.
ఇంపోర్ట్
Yes.
హలో ఇక ఇంపోర్ట్లో మనకు డేటా అనేది రీఫ్రెష్ అవ్వదు కదా. సో ఆల్రెడీ ఇప్పుడు ఏమన్నా డేటాబేస్లో అప్డేట్ అయి ఉంటుంది.
Hmm.
సో కానీ ఇప్పుడు మనం ఇక్కడ ఇక్కడ పవర్ క్వైరీలో ఏమైనా ఫిల్టర్ చేస్తాం, కానీ ఇక్కడ మనకు డేటా అనేది రీఫ్రెష్ అవ్వదు కదా ఇక్కడికి. అప్పుడు మామూలుగా ఏమైనా ప్రాబ్లం అవుతుంది కదా?
ప్రాబ్లం ఏం లేదు. సో ఇక్కడ మనం ఎంఎస్ఎఫ్ ఫిల్టర్ చేసాం కదా, ఆ డేటా ఇక్కడ తీసుకొచ్చేస్తాం. ఇక్కడ మనం ఇక్కడ రీఫ్రెష్ బటన్ క్లిక్ చేయగానే ఇక్కడ మళ్ళీ మనం ఇప్పుడు ఇన్కేస్ ఇక్కడ రీఫ్రెష్ బటన్ క్లిక్ చేస్తే ఏమవుతుందంటే మళ్ళీ కాల్ వెళ్తుంది, డేటాబేస్ కాల్ వెళ్ళేసి మళ్ళీ డేటా తీసుకొచ్చి మళ్ళీ పవర్ క్వరీకి వెళ్తుంది. మళ్ళీ పవర్ క్వరీలోకి వెళ్ళేసి మీరు పవర్ క్వరీలో మీరు ఏమైతే అప్లై చేసిన ట్రాన్స్ఫర్మేషన్స్ మళ్ళీ అప్లై అవుతాయి. ఆల్ ద ట్రాన్స్ఫర్మేషన్స్ విల్ బి అప్లైడ్ ఆన్ యువర్ డేటా. ద రిజల్ట్ విల్ బి ఇంపోర్టెడ్ ఇన్ టు పవర్ క్వరీ ఎవ్రీ టైమ్ అంతే. ఇఫ్ యూఆర్ అప్లైయింగ్ వన్ ఫిల్టర్ కండిషన్. ఎస్, గో హెడ్.
అంటే రీప్లేస్ బటన్ అనేది మామూలుగా ఆటోమేటిక్గా తీసుకుంటుంది, మామూలుగా మనం ప్రతిసారి మనం చేయాలి కదా మాన్యువల్గా?
Right now we have to click manually. Every time we have to click on refresh button, but after completing the report development, we will save this report. We will publish the report into a Power BI service. In Power BI service we have a refresh option. We can schedule that refresh option so that we no need to click on a refresh manually. While developing a report, we will have to click on refresh button. Once the report development is completed, then we will publish that report into service. In service, we have the same option enabled, same option available in Power BI service. We will schedule it. Like client వచ్చి everyday evening 6 PM కి చేంజెస్ వస్తాయి డేటాబేస్ లో కనుకుంటే మేము 6:30కి రీఫ్రెష్ షెడ్యూల్ చేస్తాం. అప్పుడు ఏమవుతుంది, 6:30కి మళ్ళీ డేటాబేస్ కి డేటా తీసుకొచ్చుకుంటుంది ఆటోమేటిక్. మనం చేయాల్సిన అవసరం లేదు, ఇది చేయాల్సిన షెడ్యూల్ చేయొచ్చు. ఓకే, ఎనీ అదర్ క్వశ్చన్స్? మీరు అన్మ్యూట్ చేసి అడగడం బెస్ట్ అండి. ఓకే, ఫైన్. నెక్స్ట్ టాపిక్.
హలో.
ఎస్ కరెక్ట్.
ఇప్పుడు డేటాని ఇంపోర్ట్ చేసుకుంటాం కదా సార్, ఈ టేబుల్ని. సో ఆ క్వైరీ ఇన్స్టెడ్ ఆఫ్ ట్రావెలింగ్ టు డేటాబేస్ ఆల్రెడీ ఇంపోర్టెడ్ డేటాలోనే ఫిల్టర్ అవ్వడం బెస్ట్ కదా సార్? అంటే పర్ఫార్మెన్స్ వైజ్ ఇంపాక్ట్ ఏమైనా?
I'll come back to your point. So the question is, here it is generating a native query. The question is, here it is generating SQL native query. ఈ query మళ్ళీ database కి ట్రావెల్ అయ్యి ఇక్కడ ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ అయ్యి ఆ డేటాని ఇక్కడ ఎందుకు తీసుకొచ్చుకోవడం, ఆల్రెడీ డేటా ఉంటుంది కదా, దాని మీద క్వరీ పర్ఫామ్ అవ్వచ్చు కదా అంటున్నాను. అంతేనా క్వశ్చన్?
అవును సార్, అవును సార్, అవును సార్.
ఓకే, ఐ విల్ టెల్ యూ. సో మైక్రోసాఫ్ట్ హ్యాజన్ డిజైన్, లైక్ మైక్రోసాఫ్ట్ డిజైన్ చేయలేదు ఆ విధంగా. ద ఫస్ట్ రీజన్ ఒకటి. నెక్స్ట్ రీజన్ ఎందుకు, వన్ ఆఫ్ ద రీజన్ ఏంటంటే దే మైట్ హ్యావ్ వేరియస్ రీజన్స్ ఫర్ ఇట్, బట్ వన్ ఆఫ్ ద రీజన్ ఐ రెడ్ ఇన్ ద ఆర్టికల్ ఈస్, if they want to execute this query in a Power Query window, they will have to allocate more buffers. More buffers. It requires more space. It requires more space to execute your query. So there should be one execution plan, like logical reads, physical reads. They have to allocate a additional memory and for a processing, which takes a lot of time for them, like which takes more time. So allocation memory is one point where they stop doing this practice. And if they traveling, sending that query to database, and here they have everything. So they designed everything well. సీక్వెల్ సర్వర్ ఇంజిన్ లో ఏంటంటే ఆ బఫర్స్, మెమరీ అలొకేషన్ కాన్సెప్ట్స్ అన్ని డిజైన్ చేస్తున్నారు ఎఫెక్టివ్ గా, చాలా ఎఫెక్టివ్ గా. సో అందుకని వాళ్ళు ఏం చేశారంటే, సెండింగ్ టు ద డేటాబేస్ అండ్ గెటింగ్ ద డేటా అనేది వాళ్ళకి చాలా ఈజీ ప్రాసెస్, ఎఫెక్టివ్ ప్రాసెస్, పర్ఫార్మెన్స్ వైజ్ కూడా చాలా బాగుంటుందని చెప్పి ఆ ప్రాసెస్ ఇంప్లిమెంట్ చేస్తున్నారు. దట్స్ వాట్ ఐ రెడ్ ఇన్ ద ఆర్టికల్, మైక్రోసాఫ్ట్ ఆర్టికల్. ఓకే,
ఓకే, ఓకే సార్, ఫైన్.
ఎనీ అదర్ క్వశ్చన్స్ అండి? ఎనీ అదర్ క్వశ్చన్? Okay, fine. So we'll take next topic. Next topic, applied steps. We have discussed applied steps, right? So how to bring a performance through a query folding. We have discussed the query folding, right? So what is the use of query folding? It will travel back to the database and it will bring the data. So that is a SQL, that is a Power Query job, and it is doing its job, right? Then how we will get benefit of knowing this query folding? All use it. So there are certain operations like a filtering rows. There are certain transformations will generate a native query. So let's say cancel this. Let's say cancel this. Applying a filter will generate a native query. Applying a filter will generate a native query. See, right click and view native query. It is generated on native query. Now, after that you remove a column. And let's see whether it is removed. It enabled another applied steps. It is generated another native query. Then apply another operation. Select it. Split columns. So let's apply some. Now verify whether it is generated native query or not. So this particular transformation, we'll discuss about split column, don't worry. So this particular transformation is not generated any native query. So native query is not generated for this. And after that, filter rows has generated native query. Removed columns has generated native query, but splitting columns is not generated native query. And if you go and filter out something which will not generate a native query, right click, and if you see where native query is not generated. So as you mentioned, filtering rows will generate a native query, right? So for the first time, when we applied a filter rows, it generated native query, and removing columns generated native query. After that, if you are applying any transformation which will not generate a native query, ఒక native query generate చేయని ఒక transformation apply చేసిన తర్వాత, then if you apply a transformation which generates a native query, ఇంక తర్వాత మీరు ఎన్ని transformations apply చేసినా ఏ ఆపరేషన్ ఏ ట్రాన్స్ఫర్మేషన్ మీకు నేటివ్ క్వరీ జనరేట్ చేయదు. ఫస్ట్ పాయింట్. సో ఇంకెన్ని ఫిల్టర్ రోస్ అప్లై చేస్తే మీ నేటివ్ క్వరీ జనరేట్ కాదు. ఎన్ని ఫిల్టర్ రోస్ అప్లై చేస్తే నేటివ్ క్వరీ జనరేట్ అవ్వదు. ఎందుకని? ఇన్ బిట్వీన్ వి అప్లైడ్ ఏ ట్రాన్స్ఫర్మేషన్ యూజువలీ విచ్ డోంట్ జనరేట్ ఎనీ నేటివ్ క్వరీ. సో స్ప్లిట్ కాలమ్స్ అనేది ఇప్పుడు నేటివ్ క్వరీ జనరేట్ చేయదు. So now after that, if you apply any filters, which will not generate a native query. So just now we discussed that native query, generating native query, traveling that query back to the database, which will give you a better performance, right? That will give you a better performance. Instead of applying that filter on this data. That's what we discussed in this diagram. If if generating native query and sending that native query to the database and getting the data will give you a better performance. But if you apply the same filter condition on the data which is stored in Power Query, which will require more buffers, which will require more time, resource consumption, which takes more time, right? Now, so in performance point of view, if you are applying a steps, if you are applying any steps, apply steps which generates native query at the top. Okay, top లో ఫస్ట్ మీ ప్రయారిటీ ఎలా ఉండాలంటే while cleaning up the data, you have to identify what are the steps are generating a native query. Apply them first, so you can get a better performance. And whatever transformations those are not generating native query, apply them in the end. Okay, this is ఈ ఒక్క పాయింట్ కోసం ఈ హోల్ స్టోరీ చెప్పాను. సో హౌ డు వి అచీవ్ అ పర్ఫార్మెన్స్ అంటే one of the point is whatever transformations which will generate native query, we apply them at the top. After that we'll apply a transformation which will not generate native query, right? Any questions on this point? We have completed applied steps, native query and query folding. Any questions still here? One second, and those loaded. One second. Sorry, any questions? Any questions still here? Okay, fine. So next topic, let's get into next topic. So we will have to discuss all these properties, and so let's discuss about uh, group by class. So if you want to find out department wise sum of salary, so here we have an option to apply aggregations on the data. Let's go back to the diagram. Okay, here I am importing data from SQL Server. In Power Query, we have an option to apply aggregations. Okay, so let's say in Power BI Desktop, you are showing a data aggregated information. You are showing only aggregated information. You are not showing a details information over here. So I am importing employee information into Power BI Desktop, but I am not showing employee information details in anywhere in my report. I am showing only department wise sum of salary. Consider that you are showing a department wise sum of salary. Department wise salary show చేస్తున్నాను ఒక visual. Okay, but I am importing entire employee table. So what is the need of importing entire table? Consists of 14 rows, and after aggregation here you will show only 3 rows, right? So importing entire data into Power BI Desktop and after applying aggregations in Power BI Desktop is not a right process. Okay, right approach. In case if you are showing detailed 14 detailed rows anywhere in the report, then it is acceptable. Okay, in case you are importing detailed information and you're not showing detailed information anywhere in the report, and you are showing only summary information, so in that case we can do aggregations in a Power Query. Here we can push the data through a Power Query. Here we have a aggregate transformation. We can apply aggregate on this data, so which will give you department wise sum of salary. Then we'll import that data into Power BI Desktop. So now there are two steps. We are talking about performance side now. We are talking about how to improve the performance of a Power BI report. So first step. So importing employee for first approach, and you have to tell me best approach. Which one do you prefer? Importing 14 rows into Power BI Desktop, 14 rows, all columns. Okay, I am showing department by sum of salary in one table visual. This is the first approach. Next approach, taking 14 rows into Power Query. Here we have a group by class, applying department by sum of salary and importing only department by sum of salary into Power BI Desktop and showing it in this visual. This is the second approach. Now, which one do you prefer? Which one is effective as per you? So some of you might thinking it's a travel, right? So database నుంచి పవర్ క్వరీకి ట్రావెల్ అవ్వాలి, అక్కడి నుంచి ఇక్కడికి ట్రావెల్ అవ్వాలంటే ట్రావెల్ ఓన్లీ వన్స్ అండి, ఓకేనా, ఓన్లీ వన్స్. సో సెకండ్ వన్ ఈజ్ అ బెస్ట్ అప్రోచ్. సెకండ్ ఈజ్ అ బెస్ట్ అప్రోచ్. ద రీజన్ బీయింగ్, we are doing aggregations while importing data into Power BI Desktop, and we are doing aggregation only once, and we are putting the data into Power BI Desktop so that it occupies less space, right? Storing 14 rows into Power BI Desktop and storing 3 rows into Power BI Desktop, there is a difference, no? 14 rows ki ఎక్కువ space కావాలి, 3 rows ki less space కావాలి, comparatively 14 rows storing. Okay, fine. So that is a need, and so we have to know need of applying each and every feature in Power Query. So let's go back to Power Query. Okay. And let's take any table. Let's take this table. So here I'm importing employee table. Instead of importing everything, remove unwanted columns first. Remove unwanted columns. I don't want this column. Remove unwanted columns. Don't import unwanted columns in Power BI Desktop. First step, remove unwanted columns. Don't import unwanted columns into Power BI Desktop, which requires more space. Okay. Now we require only department number and salary. Now how to apply group by? So here click on a group by option, and here group by which column? Yeah, it will increase the size of the PBX file. It will require more space and it will more time. Okay. Next, under group by which column? So group by department number, group by department number. Now sum of salary, right? So group by department number, sum of salary. Here name of the column, total salary. Total salary. Simple. You no need to write any query. So group by department number, sum of salary. The sum of salary column name which is total salary. Click OK. Now it will show you department wise sum of salary. Simple approach, right? I'm just showing again. So I am removing unwanted columns. I'm removing unwanted columns. I'm filling these are unwanted columns. Manager number. Keep commission and keep commission. So now I want to display group by department number, sum of salary, sum of commission. Okay, click on group by. Here group by department number column, sum of salary. In case if you want to apply aggregation on another column, basic option is for if you have one column under group by, one column under aggregation, then we'll go with the basic option. If you have a multiple columns under group by, multiple columns under aggregations, then we'll go to advanced option. Click on advanced, and here we get a option to select multiple columns under group by. And if you here we can select one more column. Here this is a total salary, salary, and here we'll count total commission, again sum, but this time on a commission column. Okay, click OK. Now each department wise sum of salary, sum of commission. I'm again just removing it, and this time I want to have a department wise, job wise, sum of salary, department wise, job wise, sum of salary. I'm keeping only these three columns. Department wise, job wise, sum of salary. Click on group by option, and over here which option to select? We have to select advanced option, right? Advanced option. Now we have two columns under group by. Add group. Now group by department number, group by job, and here is a total salary, total sal, Here I want to apply a sum on salary column. Click OK. This gives you department wise, job wise sum of salary. So any questions on group by transformation? Any questions on group by? Okay. So over here, no questions, right? Next, in case if you want to apply sorting, if you want to apply a sorting, right, then here we have a sorting options, right? Same as Excel and same as Excel. If you know Excel very well, then Power BI కూడా చాలా ఈజీగానే ఉంటుంది. Okay. If you want to apply a sorting on this data, if you no, we cannot edit this data. We cannot edit this. This is coming from file, right? This is coming from file. We cannot edit this data. Okay, editing is option is not there. Okay, now we'll come back to we'll go back to our topic one. So in case if you want to sort this data, here select this column, and here we have an option called A to Z means ascending order. A to Z means ascending order. It will sort the data in ascending order. Z to A means descending order. Z to A means descending order, right? So in case if you want to sort the data before importing into Power BI, here we have an option called ascending and descending order for sorting this information. Okay. So any questions so far? Next topic, split column. Let's go to the next option, split column. After split column, we will discuss this data source setting. Split column. So we are discussing each and every topic in Power Query, so it requires like I require 5 more minutes after 10 o'clock. Okay. Split column. So in SQL Server, we have returned a 1 kilometer query, right, for extracting middle name. మీరందరూ రాస్తుంటారు 1.5 kilometer query రాశారు కదా మీరందరూ. Select sp underscore tables. Okay, it's the name కదా, name. Okay, we don't have a names created in Power BI. Triple R theme. నాకు గుర్తు ట్రిపుల్ ఆర్ ఏం చేస్తున్నాం. Yes. Okay. Okay. We'll have it, and we'll have it. Okay. Next, here we have returned a queries in SQL Server to extract a first name, middle name, and last name. So we all tried, right? So we all tried writing expressions for extracting first name, middle name, last name. So మీరు మీరు ఇంత కష్టపడుతున్న మైక్రోసాఫ్ట్ వాళ్ళు తెలిసి ఏం చేశారంటే దే హ్యావ్ ప్రొవైడెడ్ వన్ ఆప్షన్ కాల్డ్ స్ప్లిట్ కాలమ్ ఆప్షన్ పవర్ క్వరీ for splitting a single column into multiple columns. If you want to split data under single column into multiple columns, right now the scenario over here is we have a name, we have a name in a column, we have a name in a column, full name. Now we want to split this column into 3 columns: first name, middle name, and last name. I want to split the data under the single column into 3 columns: first name, middle name, and last name. In a SQL, we know how to split the data. So by using a string function, substring, char index, we used length function. We have a various functions to achieve this. But in Power Query, we have an option called split column transformation. Split column transformation is used to split a data under one column into a multiple columns. I'll show you how it is. Let's go to Power Query and import data from SQL Server. Import data from SQL Server. The name of the SQL Server. Some of you are feeling like wherever we go, ఎక్కడికి వెళ్ళినా ఈ స్ట్రింగ్ ఫంక్షన్స్ వదలట్లేదని కదా. మీరు ఎస్ఎస్ఐఎస్లోకి వెళ్ళినా స్ట్రింగ్ ఫంక్షన్స్ వదలవండి. సో మ్యాండేటరీ. సో స్ట్రింగ్ ఫంక్షన్స్, డేట్ ఫంక్షన్స్ డాక్స్ లో మళ్ళీ రిపీట్ అవుతాయి. డోంట్ వరీ, మళ్ళీ డాక్స్ లో కూడా రిపీట్ అవుతాయి. సో స్ట్రింగ్ ఫంక్షన్స్, డేట్ ఫంక్షన్స్ మీరు ఎక్కడికి వెళ్ళినా వదలవి. ఓకే. Okay, import it. Now we have a column. Now let's see how to split first name, middle name, last name. Select this column, go to split column property. Here we have multiple cases, we have various cases. All cases are not required right now. You go with the by delimiter case, by delimiter case. And over here, on what basis you want to split this column into multiple columns? So based on this, based on underscore, if you find underscore, then split it. If you find underscore, you split it, then click OK. Now it's split into first name, middle name, last name. Simple. So no query is required. Now no query is required to split data from one column into multiple columns. Again, just removing the step. So remove the step. So if you want to split data under a single column into multiple columns, select this column, go to split column by delimiter option. Here we have to select on what basis you want to split. Here we have to give a separator. If you find underscore, split it. Rama underscore split, Ram underscore split, Tarak underscore split. So first name will be Ram, Rama, Ram, Taraka. ఓకే. సో ఈ ఫస్ట్ అండర్ స్కోర్ మనకు ఒక ఫస్ట్ కాలం వస్తుంది. Between first underscore and second underscore you will get under as a middle name, and after last underscore you will get as a last name, right? So here we have a three options. Split at, split at, it has three properties: leftmost delimiter, rightmost delimiter, each occurrence of the delimiter. Okay, if you select leftmost delimiter, backward slashes ఉంటే ఇక్కడ మీరు backward slash పెట్టండి, ఫార్వర్డ్ స్లాష్ ఉంటే ఫార్వర్డ్ స్లాష్ పెట్టండి, స్టార్ ఉంటే స్టార్ పెట్టండి. ఓకే, స్పేస్ ఉంటే ఒక స్పేస్ ఇవ్వండి, మీ ఇష్టం. మీకు ఎలా ఏ సింబల్ ఉంటే ఆ సింబల్ ఇక్కడ. ఓకే, ఇట్స్ ఎడిటబుల్. దిస్ బాక్స్ యూ కెన్ ఎంటర్ దిస్ వాల్యూ ఇంటూ బాక్స్. రెండు ఉంటే కష్టం అండి, ఏదైనా ఒకటి ఉంటే. రెండు ఉంటే చెప్దాం, రెండు కేసు ఉంది. ఓకే, రెండు ఉన్న కేసు తీసుకుందాం మరి. ఓకే, మీకోసం. సో ఫస్ట్ విల్ డిస్కస్ దిస్, దెన్ విల్ టేక్ బోత్ కేస్. ఓకే, అండర్ స్కోర్, split at left occurrence, leftmost delimiter. Select this leftmost delimiter, which means I want to extract only first name, first column. Yes, leftmost delimiter means it will extract only first name. It will extract only first name. Control Z. Control Z means remove steps. Next step. Next step. By delimiter. Here we have a second option called rightmost delimiter. Rightmost delimiter means will extract last name. Will extract last name. Click OK. So we'll extract only last name. Again Control Z. So if you use the last option, each occurrence of the delimiter, which means మీకు ఎన్ని underscores ఉంటే a number of names గా డివైడ్ అయిపోతుంది. ఓకే, click OK. So now let's take a case when we have two different symbols. అని చెప్పారు. So here first we have a replace values. If you want to replace a underscore specific value into your string, specific character రీప్లేస్ చేయాలనుకుంటున్నారు కదా. సో స్పెసిఫిక్ క్యారెక్టర్ రీప్లేస్ చేయాలంటే మనం ఇప్పుడు రీప్లేస్ ఆప్షన్ ఉంది, బట్ రీప్లేస్ వాల్యూస్ అన్ని సెలెక్ట్ అయిపోతాయి, అన్ని రీప్లేస్ అయిపోతాయి. ఇప్పుడు అండర్ స్కోర్ ప్లేస్ లో మీరు, సో వేరెవర్ దర్ ఇస్ అండర్ స్కోర్ ప్లేస్ లో మీకు డాలర్ సింబల్ రావాలనుకోండి, డాలర్ ఇచ్చారనుకోండి, అన్ని రీప్లేస్ అయిపోతాయి. టూ రీప్లేస్ అయిపోయి చూడండి. But replace, if you want to remove if you want to replace a specific character with another character, here we have a transformation called a replace values transformation. We can make use of it. Right now two different things unte kada meer adigindi, two different things unte ela cheyali ani. So let's bring two different cases. So we don't have a stuff function available over here to replace second one. So let's go to db and can you tell second underscore మాత్రం replace చేసే query చెప్తారు నాకు. Can you give me a query which replaces only second underscore with a dollar symbol? Can you give me a query to replace only second underscore or replace only first underscore? First underscore replace చేస్తాను నేను query చెప్తారా? మీరు చెప్పండి. Start into ఫస్ట్ అండర్స్కోర్ మాత్రం రీప్లేస్ చేయాలండి. మన సీక్వెల్ అంతా అయిపోయింది కదా మరి. సో హౌ టు రీప్లేస్ ఫస్ట్ అండర్స్కోర్? How to replace only first underscore? ఇక్కడ వచ్చేసి ఏం రాయాలి? క్యార్ ఇండెక్స్ ఆఫ్ అండర్స్కోర్. Special symbols. So let's take what is the special symbol? At the rate. Let's take at the rate. So ఈ query వర్క్ అవుతుంది చూడండి సార్. కంపైల్ చేయండి query. సరే డిబగ్ చేయండి. అప్డేట్ టేబుల్ నేమ్ సెట్ స్టఫ్ కాలమ్ నేమ్ ఎక్స్ట్రాక్షన్ అండర్స్కోర్ పొజిషన్ నుంచి వన్ క్యారెక్టర్ ఐ వాంట్ టు రీప్లేస్ విత్ at the rate. విల్ దిస్ query వర్క్? చూస్తే సరిపోతుంది కదా. At the rate వర్కౌట్ అయ్యింది. So let's import this table now. Go to Power Query. To be very quick and an SQL and to very quick. SQL server name provide చేయండి. If you go to advanced technologies like Azure, you require SQL knowledge. If you go to testing, Selenium testing and all, you require knowledge in database. If you go to .NET, you require knowledge in SQL. If you go to Java, you require knowledge in SQL. Select this and click OK. Okay, see, we have at the rate now. We have two different symbols as you like. Two different symbols. Now, how to split this? So first, select this and split column by delimiter. First, you split by using at the rate. At the rate, you just split this in. Split type in there. You rename it as a first name. First name. You rename it as a first name. Next, దీన్ని మళ్ళీ స్ప్లిట్ చేయండి. మళ్ళీ సెలెక్ట్ చేసుకోండి. మళ్ళీ స్ప్లిట్ చేయండి. ఇక్కడ అండర్ స్కోర్ స్ప్లిట్ చేసి మిడిల్ నేమ్ and last name. Okay, fine. If you have a multiple like various symbols unte, this is how we have to split the column. Any questions on split column transformation? Split column, group by. So we will discuss data source settings and other options in next session. Okay, so that's all for today's session. We will discuss all other options in next session.